So we have it. This is an important, important for folks to be up to date. So, good morning. I hope everybody had a restful weekend, and um, everybody's off to a great start of the week. So I think to start the meeting, let's just address several emails that went out yesterday, and some current news. Uh, I guess, Stephanie, without putting you on the spot, I would, if you would like to open this up, we all got your email, and let me all just say, I think on behalf of everybody, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you've done. I couldn't have gotten through the past couple of months without you. I just want to say, so, and I'm honored, to have, the confidence that you've shown in me in recent weeks and days. So obviously we're gonna have this is gonna be an intense transition, but I personally am rather optimistic that we can come out of this very strong. I think I spoke yesterday with several board members, and one thing that we all kind of established is this is going to mean that we need to, instead of going down a gradual incline with a bunch of changes, we're going down a much steeper slope. But if we do it right, we can come out of it with some much needed changes and updates to the evolution of ourselves as an institution. I think a lot of people have heard me say over the past few months that we need to evolve from a personality driven institution to a process governed institution. And, that's critical now more than ever. And I think already we just had a really good cabinet meeting, and it's clear that the processes we've already put in place are there, and they're working, and they're serving as guardrails. But Stephanie, before we go on with some of the formal updates, would you like to address everyone personally?
Sure. Well, maybe. So I really believe that, I do believe that doesn't sound like it in my voice, but because I hate to go. Sorry. But I do believe that this was actually going to make a stronger institution. It's kind of like out with the old, in with the new. It's a lot easier for changes to happen without, some of the folks that's been around for a long time. So that hopefully help change happen. I'm not going anywhere as far as, anything that's needed, I'll be there. Even after the 30th, if something's needed, it's not like if we don't get somebody hired or trained, that payroll is not going to happen or accounts receivable is not going to happen and all that. The nursing home knows that I may need to fill in those roles until we can get somebody to do all that day-to-day stuff. I mean, it's actually kind of cool because I put out the accountant job about a week ago or so, and we've actually got some really strong candidates for all that day-to-day stuff. Which, I mean, if we'd had those 2 years ago, life would have been a whole lot easier for everybody, right? Because everybody's had to pick up. So yeah, I really do think it's a good thing.
Well, thank you once again, Stephanie. I think we all will miss you dearly. I hope you join us at the holiday party. I'm fortunate enough to get to see you around town, and I'm looking forward to that. And, thank you for, how your ongoing commitment to the institution. And it's really, I think a lot of us are breathing easier knowing, as you said, that, well, maybe after September 30th, you won't be at North Mountain every day. You are just a phone call away, and we're going to need your ongoing support and friendship. So I think that's the first immediate update, is that we do now have a accountant position that is open, and we are going to fill it as fast as humanly possible. Fortunately, we have some really good applications already in, but we're still accepting them. So if you all know people, we don't want to limit ourselves, but we do need to move really quickly. So I don't. If you think you might have a potential candidate who would be a fit, let us know. Um, and but our hope is to begin interviewing people as soon as next week for that, because ideally we'd like that person to be able to start and understudy under Stephanie before she's fully has to switch. So I think that's the first big update. And the other piece of that, I had a good call with Sarah yesterday. It's, I'm sure, the first of many. And so, Sarah, thank you for your willingness to continue in your role, and really lean into that role that you've been so critical in helping us develop our finance reporting time systems. Because while we do hope to have a full-time accountant, we are certainly going to be relying on you to provide some ongoing oversight and support to that, also knowing that you're very, very busy and we don't want to overwhelm you. But so I just want to particularly thank in advance both Sarah and Stephanie for helping to make that process, I hope, pretty smooth. And so, Sarah, I don't know if you have any immediate comments, but I want to recognize that you will certainly, we had a good chat yesterday, and I know that we're going to have probably a number more as we move pretty rapidly through this um, transition in the finance position.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, I am certainly at this point willing to take on a little more in this realm that I've been working in for community engagement in Appalachia, and basically transfer my knowledge and experience in what we've been doing for community engagement in Appalachia to our other grants and funders as far as financial management and reporting goes. You know, Stephanie's shoes are very big ones. And I will certainly need patience from people as I figure this stuff out. Because she does more than just the financials. She does a lot with our HR side of things, and that pertain to financials. That is, my background is not in finance and accounting, despite my proficiency in it. It's more of my proficiency is really with Excel spreadsheets. And so there's a steep learning curve for me right now.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for just for being there. As I said, you were one of the first people I talked to yesterday, and I felt much better after talking with you about, hey, this actually could be really smooth. The other thing I will say, and this brings me to the next big agenda update, which is I did speak to several board members yesterday, both current board members as well as new board members. And so obviously the board needs to reach its own decisions about a number of things, right? Who the actual appointment of both a new executive officer is the board's decision. And so that needs to happen and will happen this Saturday. But I was also very clear with the board members that we needed a new treasurer. That position is currently vacant. And given the upcoming transition, and I have spoken with a couple board members about who I think would be the strongest treasurer. I don't want to, and I'm hopeful that we will have a decision on that. And I've been really clear, this is not, we need somebody who's able to take on that position and provide some hands-on support, as Sarah and Stephanie just alluded to. This is an opportunity, I think, to also really help figure out the role of the treasurer in the long run in relationship to our finance office. So, when each door closes, another one can open. And I think that, so that just as we kind of move from some of the financial concerns into the board discussion and the upcoming board meeting, I think that's one of the critical points to underscore that I've already begun to raise in terms of the board saying, obviously the board had their chairperson resign
Good girl.
yesterday. But in addition to that, and obviously a lot of my conversations with board members was about the chairman's resignation, I was really clear that Stephanie's resignation meant that this was also an urgent action item for them, was the election of, we have a vice chair who can continue to serve as chair until the annual meeting, but it is, to my mind, untenable that we will go until the annual meeting without a treasurer. I'm going to continue to make sure, I've talked to Deborah, who's the board secretary, about making sure we get an action item there at the board meeting. I think the next big item is the board meeting. So as I think everybody got Daniel's resignation letter, and he obviously was a big decision for him, despite the fact that he did get some, had a medical appointment last week that did not go as planned. So this is where some of these, just to be blunt, stars are aligning and telling us we have to move rapidly through some of these changes. So the board meeting agenda, I am hopeful will go forward as planned with some added items. And so specifically, the bylaws as drafted are going to go forward to the board. I think, we just talked about that as cabinet. That is a process, given that the board is not voting on them, but just being given the chance for input. We can then engage them. I think Kelly and I can, as governance committee members, can work with Kimberly to get their feedback in rapidly. But we need to keep that process moving along for HLC and for the other reasons. There's no reason why the news of yesterday should impact those board bylaws moving forward on the plan timeline. And I think this also helps to clarify a question that had come out of the committees, which is, are we going to keep meeting as a committee? And I think absolutely, we just discussed a cabinet that I'm hopeful that all the committees will move forward with greater participation from the board, with a clearer mandate to help work on these policies. So before we get to HLC, or actually, that's a good transition, because I guess that other point I will just say about HLC is this is an opportunity for us to do what's been needed and HLC has been asking us to do for a long time, which is let academics take the lead on accreditation. And so all of us need to be moving into a very concerted effort to support that. We need to be clear. We need to be working in tight synergy. But I think likewise, we had a good meeting with Chris and Kelly yesterday. Chris joined the governance meeting and I found it very helpful. And there's still a lot we need to figure out for the HLC response. But I think once again, Kelly and I have been talking already about how this just kind of forces our hand in some areas where we need to move beyond just saying we're going to do it and start doing it. So Kelly, over to you to pick up as chair of the governance committee and the HLC committee or the academics HLC committee to pick up on the board meeting. And also, I don't know if you want to give an update on HLC and any of that other aspects.
Sure. Yeah. I think, it's also really soon, guys, right? Like, we've had a lot of change. And then yesterday was a big day. Like, I think as an institution, Stephanie deciding to pursue other great opportunities for herself is wonderful. But it does make us all, it makes me very nervous about like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about that? And I've had a chance to talk to Stephanie, and she's, reassured me that she knows she's got a lot that she holds together. She's available for those calls when we can't figure out. I now realize why the Zoom keeps messing up. It's because it's something to do with now the ownership of Zoom changing and stuff like that. They're all doable things, but we really relied on Stephanie to kind of be that rock for all of us. So, so I think we'll circle back to you, Stephanie, before the end of this meeting. But yeah, so I think the strat. So again, there's a lot, and I'll be leaning on Chris to make sure that we, Chris Roper, make sure that we can write up the strongest argument for the visit. It's in December. We still have, unlike some other changes that have happened in the last couple months, this change we actually have a couple weeks to kind of make sure that we have, we can all say the things we need to say. Why Luke keeps talking about the board and why I talk about the board all the time is that it's what was lacking a lot in our response to HLC was sort of this disconnect between the institution and the board. And that's something that really cannot exist. And so it's going to be our job for the next little while to show that the board and the institution are actually on the same page. They're moving together. There's a lot to do, but that is the goal. And so the idea being that, you know, Chris and I and Luke will go to Chicago. Chris and I will represent the academic arm of the institution. Luke will be there as the person saying, yes, the institution as a whole is behind the academics. We recognize that that is one of the main things that this institution does. And there's probably going to be other changes due to that, right? Like this has been a lot is happening, you guys, right? You guys know that, but we also really feel, I mean, I feel really supported by the people on this call. I felt really supported by Luke and by Stephanie as we go through this, and just the importance of us staying together as an organization so that we can continue with our mission, right? Like, the students hardly know that anything's going on, which is perfect. And because nothing is going on, the institution is growing and changing, but the academic program is staying pretty much the same as it has been for the last couple of years, and it should be like that for the next couple of years. And the only thing happening is kind of improvements along the way, right? So, but this is a staff meeting, so I don't remember what else is on the agenda, Luke. I feel really good about all of that, but I also look to you guys to make sure to say, what about this? What about that? We need to make sure that we are all keeping our heads on straight through a time that's going to be a little rough.
Yeah, we kind of covered, I think, the formal updates,
Sure.
And we wanted to give a chance for people to ask questions. I will say we're going to schedule a meeting for next week. We want you all to be updated. As I said, the board needs to make some decisions. And while we maybe have a sense of which direction they are maybe going to go, let's let that process play out. I am glad to say we have the two previous board members who were invited to join, Bill Grant and Deepak, both former members. I spoke with them both yesterday, and both have agreed to join the board, and both have made it clear that they will be. They're clearing their calendars, so they will be at this board meeting on Saturday. So we do have. I think that's important to show. With Daniel moving off, we didn't have quorum. So this will give us quorum. This will make sure that we have some new voices, but are also experienced voices in the room as we start to pick up some of these topics. So that is, and Kelly, I'll turn back to you in a second. I did want to say, there are questions abound right now. I think it's important that, and if people have thoughts or suggestions about how we capture those questions without letting them overwhelm us collectively, right? Because we're going to need to delineate between urgency and importance. And sometimes urgent and important go together. Other times if something's really important, it shouldn't be urgent, right? And so I think as we kind of carve through some of these things, certainly I would say, as you have questions, best put them in writing, and please email them, not just to me or not just to Kelly, but probably to all of cabinet, right? And we can try to keep a running list. I don't want to blow up our inboxes. Maybe if there's another way, I don't know that but I think
I just, the reason I pulled my hand up is I had a suggestion, and you all shoot me for it, that we could just start a new Slack channel for it. Because then you could have the subthreads that continue conversations. You all can shoot me for it. It's okay.
I think if we do that, it's important that we don't let cascading discussions get ahead of ourselves, I think would be the only point. Let's right now, the goal is to collect the critical questions, Joey, not try to answer them all at once. And I think that's kind of from the overwhelm. So I'm very open. I mean, I think if does anybody dislike a Slack channel? Or I guess text us separately if you hate a Slack channel. Otherwise, we can. Kelly, over to you.
Let's try it between now and the next week's meeting, right? Let's do it for a week, see how it goes. Because it is hard to know, like there's different levels of questions and we don't want to lose any of them. I mean, I went through this process with the bylaws, right? Like I've got various levels of questions that I'm trying to manage, and that's just with one document. So yeah, I think, if someone wants to suggest a good name for one, we can start one, and just see how it goes for the next week. And but Joey, I mean, I do want, we're a weird remote like program. I mean, like institution, right? Like we used to be always together, and then now we're kind of always apart. So I didn't want people to have a chance to like say anything, just share with Stephanie a little if they want about how I don't know. I get to talk to her and say how important it is, and I've already said that on this call. So please feel free to I can call on people, but then that becomes weird too. Yeah, that sounds good, Joey. So if anybody has anything that if they want to say now at the meeting because they weren't in the hallway with Stephanie when she announced, please feel like this is that opportunity for you, even if it's a little bit weird and awkward. So.
Or just, if you want to speak. I mean, I think, about anything. This is a lot. And part of our point, we wanted to get you all updates to what we presumed would be the big questions. And so, yeah, the floor is open, I think, and certainly to address or speak to any of what has been mentioned thus far in the meeting. Well, so on this, and especially as it relates, I want to underscore that Stephanie, while we are really both happy for you and sad to see you go, I'm also delighted that you're still around for the next couple weeks. And so, yeah, if you weren't thinking of coming to North Mountain, or I guess one question, Stephanie, are you going to be at North Mountain a fair amount if people want to make a point to be able to come see you in person?
Or I'll be up next week. I got jury duty on Tuesday. So hopefully that won't take that long. Hopefully I won't get chosen. But then the following week I'll be up there, most of it, because the audit is actually the week after next. So yeah.
Stephanie, just say that you have class. You get out of it.
Okay, I'll tell them I have class when they do the call and see if I can get out of it, because I really don't want to do it. And yeah.
Sarah, did you want to say something? I know you.
Well, yeah.
I don't have to call on you. I just
no. I was just gonna reiterate that we have the audit in 2 weeks, and so it's both. It would be an interesting time for people to come and see the behind the scenes side of that part of what happens and what we do. But it's not necessarily the most ideal time to come and just like hang out with Stephanie or I, because we are pretty one-track minded, attending to our audit team's needs.
Well, so thank you, Sarah. And obviously, you all just let us know how and what you need to support you with that audit. I think that everybody on this call would jump at the opportunity right now to help support either of you all. So just let us know how we can. Well, so if certainly the opportunity is still there for people to speak, but I figured why don't I share some uplifting news, which is that obviously a big question, and this relates to Stephanie and just what a wonderful person and asset she's been for our institution, is that a highlight of my week last week was when I went in to Stephanie's office and she looked up at me and said, "We're in way better financial position than we were a month ago." And thank you. I mean, that is the outcome of a lot of the collective work that's been done. But also, Stephanie, that was you were the guiding force behind that. And so everything we have done to tighten our belt, and that's been a team effort. We had people volunteer to pull back days. This has just been great. But we have been able to move ourselves to a much better financial position. We still have a shortfall, but it is not a shortfall that means, for instance, I think, Kelly and I talked the other week and we said, what is this business of we're not going to have a spring term or something? Of course, we are in a position where we can make good for our students. And I think that's critical. There are big challenges, but they are kind of challenges that get problematic as they are cumulative. And those are exactly what I'll be working with other folks on to address. And I'm rather optimistic that we have a number of roads to success there. In that light, while we don't have an official award letter, we are fairly certain that, as some of you may know, we had the opportunity to apply to extend some of our current ACER funding, thanks to the crazy government. There was no new ACER money, but they went back and told current awardees they could ask for more. And so I'm really delighted. It looks like we're going to get a pretty hefty chunk of change, probably about the equivalent of what a brand new award would have been, in continued ACER money that should continue the Maple work well into 2028. And that's great for us. It gives us, as we know how to do this, folks. It's there are principles in seed scale that tell us we build from our successes, we form partnerships, and the Maple's been a big success. So we've got that to galvanize ourselves, and help keep bills on, in a number of lights. Also, Jenny and Casey. Jenny, do you want to unmute and say your good news or from last week?
Yeah. We already I think alluded to it several times because the nuns don't do things slow or quickly, right? They tell you you're getting money, then they want to talk about the money you're getting, and then eventually you get a check. So this has been a process. But the Sisters of St. Joe are giving us $10,000 basically in operating funds with the caveat that Sprout School happens. So about half of that does need to go to make Sprout School happen again since Northeast There, that funding is done. But that's cool. It keeps Sprout School alive for another cohort, which I know at least Margaret and Casey and I were kind of shaking our heads at about 3 months ago. So that's really exciting. Perhaps the more exciting side of this is Beth wants to have a conversation with some of the academic team about providing additional funding, and piloting some work with nonprofit leaders in West Virginia. So pretty yes, I'm excited Sprout School is happening, and also this paves the way for them to be a continued investor in future generations, which is the real win out of all this. So pretty cool.
And I like the way you said that, Jenny, because one thing I talked with Deepak last night about, he said, how do we make sure that fundraising and development becomes a university-wide priority, and that it doesn't ever just fall back on one person, because that's very unsustainable. And obviously, especially in the times that we're short on grant funding, I know those of us who were around for Jim Brasher probably got tired of hearing this, go co-create with your donors. But you can't go co-create with somebody you've never met before, but you can go co-create with the people you know. And so I think that's going to be our real strategy, is to go work with those existing donors who believe in the institution, the ones that we've been able to cultivate in region, and really try to figure out how to co-create some things together. Sarah just mentioned it in the chat. I think that had been previously announced, but we hadn't gotten the paperwork. So also to advance our youth engagement work, we just got the paperwork for our sub-award or collaboration grant with the Chef Ann Foundation and the Center for Good Food Purchasing. That came out of our Waverly Street grantee, the success mapping work. As some folks remember, I went to Mexico last year and for a big Waverly conference, and they had special pots of money for collaborations that of like, you met cool people in Mexico that you want to work with. And so out of that, I met these cool people and said, you really need to meet Jenny Totten. And so I introduced them to Jenny Totten. And so we've got a really fun project where we're kind of, I guess one of the best ways to think of it is we're kind of taking our Appalachian youth work to California, and going to work where they currently have work on the ground and see and kind of experiment with how our youth engagement models can overlap or complement their existing models on the ground. So that's another growth area. It shows growth in youth engagement, and it's also money that has been secured. So back to this point of how we're writing this ship pretty systematically. Also, last week, I think it was last Wednesday, it was crazy. Every time I check my email, we've just gotten more money. So I also got a verbal pledge last week for $100,000 to support our work in Nepal. I need to finalize that. As soon as we get off this call, I will be calling that donor back. But Surendra, that's good news. And until I have the paperwork in, but that's very exciting. So, and then last but not least, Sarah and I are in discussions with the Wellspring Foundation in Southwest Virginia, which is a contact that Margaret originally started, and are very hopeful that we will be getting an award of probably between $25,000 to $35,000 from them to advance some a really cool community serving project down in the Mount Rogers area that Joey's very close to where Joey is. And Jenny knows it well. She used to drive through that area all the time when she was in the southern part of the state. So I did want to end on just some that, those are active commitments or obligations or awards that really have come in the past week as things are getting finalized. And I certainly have a much longer checklist that I'm going to be very aggressively going after this fall, really of trying to engage all of our current donors to say, hey, we need you to step up in this institution you believe in. And the real request is to show them that we can do this as a team and that it doesn't all fall back to a single leader. That's the very thing that the donors have been asking us to prove to them for years. So I do think, this may at times be like, oh my, but I think there is a real opportunity for advancement for the evolution of the institution here. Any final questions, comments, or announcements? We go back to this question of if you want to speak now, and it can be even if it's just a general announcement.
I have one little thing that I'm kind of proud of that I wanted to share. There's a woman that I've followed on Instagram for several years. Her handle's Appalachian Sacred Smoke, and she does these like bundles of herbs and flowers. But anyway, in June, I was at the Honey Fest in Asheville, and I got to meet her. And we got to talk, and I told her that I worked at Future Generations, and she asked me about it and what it was. And so I talked to her a little bit about it, and she seemed really excited about it. And then a couple days ago, I was on her Instagram, and she announced that she started classes in the fall at Future. So I was really excited about that.
I know who it is.
Mary Ellen.
Yeah.
I talked to her mother. She really liked you.
And what's interesting,
I love her.
That's amazing. What Mary Ellen told me the other day, this is a new student in our program. She also, her great-great-grandparents were from Pendleton County. And that also, she'd met you, and then she said, oh, and she connected the dots. And apparently I didn't know who she talked to. She said she talked to someone, and then she came up to visit and drove by our driveway and drove up to the office, and she said that sealed the deal for her. She said, I
Yeah.
need to be.
So that's really exciting because she did mention that she had family and she wasn't exactly sure where. And she said she, it was in Pelton County, but she wasn't, familiar with the area. And I told her then, I was like, we're up in this mountain. I'm like, anytime you come, you can stop by. We could show you around. But I hadn't heard anything from her. So I was just really surprised and excited. And she's like, yeah, I started class. I was like, wow, okay, cool. Because I just never see myself as like being able to really talk well, like when I'm supposed to be talking about it, right? But when we're just like having a conversation, it just comes naturally. And so that was really exciting.
That's awesome, Heather. I hadn't realized that connection, and just goes to show you. I will say, I did the same thing with Kimberly when I recruited her. I asked her to go help me recruit students and got really comfortable and excited about it. And lo and behold, I accidentally recruited her. So
So Heather, that it actually worked out perfectly because she talked to you at that festival, and then she filled out information on our website. Chris Roper sent the information to me, and then I had a couple of meetings with her and got her through our admissions process, and she started right away. So it was probably the most seamless process that we could have had.
That's amazing. That sounds, yeah, like it just sounds like this is the way it's actually kind of supposed to work. But yeah, thanks, Lindsay, for talking to her and getting her through that. Cause yeah, that's awesome. I'm pretty excited about it.
that's a great success. Awesome. That's really exciting. And Casey, what is this Maple in the Classroom open houses that Jenny says you should talk about?
Yeah, we have some virtual information sessions to kind of hopefully garner some interest moving into the fall and the winter. And anybody that's trying to participate in Maple in the Classroom, we want to do a hands-on training with them. And we're trying to host several of those throughout Appalachia between October and December. But in September, we have this evening from 6 to 7 and another one tomorrow at noon. And then not this weekend, but the following Saturday, I think it's at 10 a.m. So there's 3 different Maple in the Classroom virtual information sessions to sort of kind of dip people's toes in the water. So if you know anybody that's interested in that, please send them our way.
Awesome. And is there a sign up, Casey? Like if they just go onto the website, will they be able to find a registration, or do we just send them a Zoom link?
Yeah, so thanks to Deborah and Lindsay, there is a flyer and there has been some outreach on our social media platforms and on the website. If you let me share the link, but it's basically the Maple in the Classroom page. There's the Zoom info and a bit.ly link to sign up and register. And
Great. Very good announcement. Any other announcements? Those have been a couple awesome updates. What else is hiding out there that could be shared?
So for those that didn't see, SARE used our walnut research as their community outreach material for the month of September. So that was a huge, huge uplift for the university's research. So that's a big shout out to Sarah and Mike. And then that will also be used in a couple different outreach channels as well for us to say, hey, look what's going on. To follow that up this month, Abby Vandenberg will be joining us on Out of the Woods. So that will be on Thursday. Where's my calendar off the top of my head? It is
The 18th.
the 18th. Thank you, Sarah. At 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, if anyone would like to join us for that. She is going to be presenting on red maples. She's done a red maple presentation before, but this is an updated presentation. So it's not going to be exactly the same. And then the other kind of communications announcements that we have are that on Wednesdays, we will be presenting our skill sharing webinars on digital literacy. Chris, I don't know if you can quickly put something in the chat, but those will be happening at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do not have any classes scheduled at that time. So we chose that time so that any student would be available to attend. And we will be covering things like social media, how to use Canva, how to utilize a webinar program to grow your program or your online presence, how to use YouTube, those types of things. And then I'll turn things over to Chris Reiser and she can tell you about the next skill sharing session coming up.
Sorry, I was going through my files to see if I could pull up the thing to share with you, which I'll do right after that. So the first one is going to be mobile photos and basically how to use mobile photo, like since a lot of our students and alumni aren't going to have access to a higher quality camera, that they will be taking pictures with their mobile phones, how to maximize the settings on that, how to share that amongst their colleagues so that they don't lose things by having them compressed in the sharing process, and also how to go ahead and edit those photos. So that's and Bruce is going to be really amazing, and he's doing our first session for us, which is awesome, on September 24th. All of them are on Wednesdays, 9 a.m. your time. The next one after that is going to be on Canva on the 1st of October and using the free version. And as employees, I will say please feel free to come to this. I'm going to be focusing on how to use the free version, even though us as employees, we have access to a pro version. And if you want a personal account, let me know. I will arrange it for you so that you can have your own personal, well, through your Future.edu email, sorry, but a pro account. And I will be focusing on trifolds, flyers, and web assets. So if you need to build an icon or something like that. And then we are taking October 8th off, as that is the week that is fall break. October 15th will be on building a Google site. A lot of the students use that for their, I can't think of how they show their work. And then also
portfolio.
Thank you. It was like artifacts. That's the word I was looking for, showing off their artifacts. And so we'll be showing them how, just how to do that, permissions specifically. Also, this is open to the public. So, but our target audience has been mainly students and alumni. This bridges the gap between alumni that have graduated before 2019, as a lot of them may not be aware of the tools that are available to them as alumni. Google Sites is something that's free that all people can use, but I've created templates for them that has like a very easy version, a medium, and a more in-depth pages of creating for a nonprofit organization, so that anyone that's starting a nonprofit that they need help putting together a web page but don't know what they're doing, this is basically a little tutorial on that. And then, as Lindsay said, the next two sessions will be on, the first one is on social media, webinars, and YouTube. And then Deborah will be doing the one after that, focusing on social media platforms, the type of accounts, and how to maximize the usage. And then our final one will be using AI for communications. And the way that we've looked at using AI in different things of coming up with content, but also like little tricks that we have even taught each other of, like, this is how I do this to help cut down on the amount of time. And I mean, it's not something that it saves yourself and the company money that you work for when you save that time. So, and also how to make sure that you're not being too trusting with that, how to train your AI, et cetera, giving it your priorities and making sure that the memory is updated on it. So there you go. Oh, and then after that, we will, because this takes us into October after, and it actually takes us all the way through until November 5th. In October 17th, we will have our next success sharing session. That will be Osres and Sam from the class of 2014. Both of them are by trade wash engineers, but they're going to be doing a presentation on International Eradication of Poverty Day. So it will be really, I'm really looking forward to that one. So. All right, and now I've talked enough. Thanks.
But all great stuff. And I think it's all really important, right? Like, the work doesn't stop. and it's really important that we can keep this, because as Kelly said, our students, our alumni, they don't, or even our partners, they don't necessarily know how chaotic it feels inside future generations, some right now. And when they're seeing, I think, this level of engagement coming out, it's going to be reassuring to people. This is also the sort of thing that I'm assuming will matter to HLC, right? You know, that we are going forward with our mission and our mandate, and that the work and also quality of work will not be compromised. So thank you all for these. Any final updates? We've managed to take up almost the full hour. I don't think we want to go over, but Chris?
There's also a Nepal resident or field course information session that's coming up. I don't want to forget that. So.
Good point. Chris Roper, or do you have details on that or any other updates from the academic calendar side? I know that there was a week 4 survey that went out.
Yeah, there was week 4 survey that went out. Students are quite pleased with how things are going. Overwhelmingly so, 96% happy or something like that. So yeah, that's great. We have what's next? I guess the next thing is fall break in early October. We have the Nepal information session going on. I hope that our friends in Nepal are in Kathmandu are okay. I hope everything's okay with you, Surendra and Nawang. I see in the news that there's a bit of unrest in Kathmandu right now. I hope you and your family are safe. And I hope that doesn't affect the viability of the field course. But so maybe that if we need to talk about that, Surendra, maybe we can chat at some point. But at any rate, we already have the information session on the calendar. I'm going to send out an invitation to all students again, so that they know about it. And at the same time, we are working on the next field course to Uganda next summer, which I guess is not a new destination for us, but it's new in the current format. So we have Freyo and Anthony are working on that, and we'll have more details. Yeah, jump in line, Sarah. I think there's a lot of people who want to go to Uganda. So we'll be announcing more details on that a little bit later in the semester.
Great point, Chris. And I do want to really commend the Nepal Residential is always amazing, but I got privileged to get a sneak peek at the itinerary they'd put together. And also, as you just alluded to with the Uganda one, I think this is a big deal when we need to celebrate our successes, because for those of you who remember we're at GEI, one of the big recommendations out of GEI across the board was better engagement of the alumni with our academics. And the Nepal residential is basically all built around going to see our alumni's job sites. And likewise, I know that Chris, you with Chris Reiser's help, have been working with Freyo and Anthony to also bring that forward. And I think these are the sorts of, we don't need to give lip service to this stuff when we can point that it's actually really happening now. And I think it's a big success that would be easy to go unnoticed, but it shouldn't. Instead, we should be really proud of ourselves and make a big deal out of it, because Kelly and I have been asked, they've been telling us to do this sort of thing for years. And to my mind, the fact that it's happening now is really, really exciting. So I think both of these upcoming programs are going to be really outstanding. I can't wait to see how they all roll out. All right. Any final announcements? We really did manage to, one thing this group is we've got a lot to say.
Surrender.
Yeah, look,
yes,
okay.
please.
This is an announcement, just update about what we are doing in Nepal. So far, we are working on the report program and the event. The report, we are working on the final report for the Waverly. And Deborah, Luke, myself, Manoj, and we all team are working very hard to have a very best report that we can present to the Waverly. This is one thing happening. The second one, we are very excited to organize Success Mapping Alumni in Nepal. And for that, we have a first draft action plan in our hand, and the team will discuss how we can make it more better. But for your understanding, we will be having 2-phase training in Nepal. The phase 1, we expected it to be happen in the first or second week of November. And there are altogether 10 alumni from Nepal. The one, Santosh, is in US, so he will not be the part of this training. But beside that, there are 9 people, and 3 people, including Nawang, they have practiced this success mapping. So they will be the facilitator. Beside that, the alumni like Veem, Bindu, Lokdeep, Padam, Ammar, and Hari, they will be the part of this training. But before that, we have some preparations, like we have to finalize the success mapping guidebook, which will be the best for all these training manuals and plannings. And we have to also test it with the alumni who haven't been the part of this success mapping programs earlier, so they can test it and let us know how it works and what are the areas of improvement. So this is the phase 1, and after that, we are working on having phase 2 program for the alumni from Bhutan. And this we expect to be happen on the first week of January. And so far we have noted that there are 5 alumni from Bhutan, but we have to find out their whereabouts, where are they, and how they can manage the time for this training. But we have good enough time for that. So we will do our best to include everyone so that everyone can learn and practice the success mapping in the very special places of Bhutan, because Bhutan is a zero carbon city, and then they are very much concerned about the climate change. So this success mapping will definitely help them best. So, and that will be happening in the first week of January. So this is success mapping. And beside that, we are also working on doing coordination for Nepal residential. And we always take very high concern for the residential, because this is the time where we can really showcase how the seed scale or the other theory things works in the real life cases. So this time we are planning to take them to the western part of Nepal, because it will be the January, February time. So considering the weather, as well as the alumni like Gauri has access to the Chitwan, and Pradeep has very good access, and they have a program in Pokhara. so we can give them the best look how it happens with the community. So, and for that, we are doing some coordinations, and we are very confident that we will have the best time with the participants. So these are three things we are working on. And regarding the recent happening in Nepal, right now we have no government. For your information, the president, prime minister, and all the ministers have been taken by the army into the place unknown because they want to save their life. And most of the major corrupt leaders' houses have been burned, their business have been burned. And right now they're trying to form the interim government. And the person who is very dear to Luke, Mr. Balensa, the youth, they recommended him as an interim prime minister for Nepal. Let's see how it worked out. And he's a very good guy. He's a very young and very visionary guy. So bad things happening for good reason and better future. So we are very hopeful that better days will be in Nepal. Yeah, but let's see how it work out.
Well,
So
obviously, that's dramatic. Please keep us posted. It does sound, given Nepal's ability to take down and reform governments pretty rapidly. I expect we are probably, as of now, in good shape, but certainly, we need to keep an eye on this situation. And if some way this leads to Balin becoming PM, that's a win for Nepal. So, as you say, I'm a very big fan.
And for your information, none of these events, programs, or activities will be affected because we have good enough time from now on. So we're very confident there will be no any effect in our programs.
Great. Chris, did you have a final announcement or question? Otherwise, we're pretty much at time, but I thought I saw your hand up.
No, it's okay. I followed up with an email, so we're all good.
Great. All right. Well, in that case, thank you all, everybody. So Kelly, are you going to go ahead and create that Slack channel?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. And then keep your eyes peeled. Does next Tuesday work for everybody? The same general time slot? Or is there anybody who has strong feelings about moving to Wednesday? All right. Well, hearing no dissent for next Tuesday, well, there's a development team meeting at that time, but I think we can move that in lieu of a staff meeting. So if everyone could plan to tentatively mark off 11 a.m. Next Tuesday, and I will go ahead and send around a Zoom link for that when we get off the call.
Yeah.
Luke, could you also include teaching faculty for that, if that's okay?
Absolutely. And I will, Chris, let's work, or Paula, you've got access to my Zoom room because I did hit record for this. So if that can be circulated to folks, I think that's also important, right? We want transparency is the name of the game right now. Perfect. All right. Thank you all. We will be in touch and really appreciate the teamwork. And once again, thank you, Stephanie. Really, from the bottom of my heart, and I think from all of us, we will miss you dearly, and we are so excited for you in this new opportunity. Have a great day, everyone.